Welcome listeners. Today's guest has began his career in the fitness industry at age 18 and after showing a depth of knowledge within a year had already begun lecturing to aspiring fitness professionals. He established Truformance in 2015, working with professional athletes, the majority of which being footballers that have played at a variety of levels, including the lower leagues, English Championship, Premier League and International, with some having featured on the World Cup stage. He's in the process of launching a new software for fitness professionals called ProgramKing, scheduled to go live in the summer of 2020, as well as being one of the most colour-coordinated people I've ever seen in sportswear, Mr. Elliott Sterling. How are you, mate?
I'm not too bad, thank you. How are you?
Yes, I'm all good. I'm all good. How's things?
Love the intro.
Good, innit? Good. It's good. How's
yeah,
things?
I'm not too bad, thank you. Obviously, different times to normal, so just trying to navigate the landscape as much as possibly can, really, as much as everybody else is, just trying to adapt, move forwards, keep a positive mind frame, and that's it, really.
Yeah, it's definitely testing times for everyone, isn't it, at the moment? But
absolutely,
it seems like you've been settling in and trying to keep busy.
I have been, yeah. I mean, obviously, the way in which people are delivering their services and stuff now has changed, and it's changed for me as well. The workload's changed, so obviously a little bit of a decrease in areas, increase in other areas. But like I say, all you can do really in this scenario is adapt, isn't it, and move forward from there.
Exactly, mate. Exactly. So it's good. It's good to catch up with you. We've not spoken for a little bit, have we? To be fair, it's been a while.
It's been a long time. It's been a long time. We go back so many years. It's unbelievable.
I know. Too long. I think that's probably one of the things that sticks out in my mind actually is when we first met, because you obviously working for GFI together. I remember you first coming on the scene and your age, you were younger than me, and I was just blown away by the amount of knowledge that you showed. We mentioned it in the introduction there, just how much information seemed to be stored in that head at such a young age was ridiculous, mate. And that was alongside that obviously the drive that you showed and the ambition that you had from then was mad. So it's probably no surprise to me anyway of how you've ended up with your career and the directions you've gone in and the level of people that you've been working with. So how did you, we won't go through all of the boring stuff about all the shit we used to get up to, mate. We'll be here forever. So we'll probably start off with Truformance and how you got into that, if that's good with you. Talk us through that, mate. How was it?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, like you say, obviously got into the fitness industry quite young, and to sort of step back a little bit, because it will lead into how I got into Truformance. I used to play academy level football, and obviously being young and naive, had blinkers on, thought, I'm going to be professional footballer, that's it. No backup plan, that's just what I'm going to do, until it all came crashing down and got released. From that, consequently, went into a fitness qualification, and just loved it, just absolutely loved it. And it was just something else for me to divert my focus on. I was fascinated by everything. It was something that I wanted to follow myself personally. And it had, a direct career path where I could feel I could help people. Cut a long story short, obviously after PTing for a few years, I sort of found myself at this juncture where I was working with a lot of clients that were lovely people, motivated in their own way, but the sort of stuff that I was doing was very samey. Sort of looked out for other CPD style courses that could branch out maybe the type of clients that I was going to work with, and just sort of started off with what was interesting to me. And obviously having a background in sport, naturally gravitated towards sports performance, biomechanics and things like that. Did some qualifications and then didn't really look back from there. Obviously, having played football as a younger lad, still had a few connections with people that had made it into a professional game, and I literally just reached out to a few people that I had a little bit of loose contact with and just said, look, this is what I'm doing now. Done a few recent qualifications in sports performance and the like. I really want to try and apply these skills that I've learned in the real world setting. Would you come down for a session? Obviously, completely free of charge. I just want to practice out these skills with somebody, of a high level, athlete or fitness level. And that's the way it started, really.
So it was more jumping in. So obviously getting started there, you just wanted to practice your craft a little. So I remember you coming back and some of the qualifications you did and some of the stuff you used to talk me through. It was just mind blowing how it was kind of like your your approach to training and delivering sessions just changed dramatically. Like the movement patterns you were using, planes of movement coming into pretty much everything that you were getting people to do at different stages was just mind-blowing, because we'd not really seen that, had we? Let's be fair, in the training we'd gone through, and the types of members that we were seeing day in, day out, we'd not really seen that. So it was mind-blowing for me to see you come back and just switch and have this ridiculous amount of options with what you might consider, even just down to a chest press. I remember some of the stuff you used to do with chest pressing. It was like the world was your oyster, because you never had an end point of ideas of how you could tweak and change and exercise. So how did you find moving from Gen Pop clients, so to speak, the general population, into working with those athletes? What was the major things that sort of stood out?
I think the main thing that stood out for me on a personal level was the first people that I reached out to, like I say, were people that I still had a bit of contact with. So there wasn't so much pressure as there was, later on when I started to work with clients that I'd never met before that were professionals. Yeah. But even still, even though I knew these people, I felt there was a little bit more pressure. There was a little bit more on the line, which looking back on it is probably not the case, because everyone is equal in their own right, but from like a asset point of view, from regards to how valuable that player is to a club or whatnot, I felt a lot of pressure. And obviously it was still relatively new sort of approaches that I was using. So, there was still a lot of uncharted territory as to, okay, this is in theory how I think the program should go. And if they do this, and they're capable of this, they should get to their end goal. But, like anything, in theory, sometimes it's different in application, and there's so many other barriers that can come into play and things that meant it was an uncertain route, but I just kept on going forward with it, really.
Because it's been a while now, hasn't it? Truformance 23, so what, 5 years?
Yeah, 5 years. Since I set the company up properly, yes. It's probably 5 or 6 since I started working with athletes from the very get-go, but until I set it up as a proper entity, about 5 years. Did
you find that when you were bringing people into your sessions and the sort of stuff you were doing, so almost your prep work with these clients, the onboarding and the discussions that you were having before they came into your business, did you think that was there a massive change between that and general population, or getting set and the information that you needed before the session? Like, was there much difference in that, or?
There was a lot of a difference in terms of sort of like preparation of how I was going to go about things. I think it helped having a football background and working with footballers initially, because you know a lot of the movement patterns. But surprisingly, what I found quite quickly in the first sort of like 2 to 3 people I started to work with, there's actually not that much difference in how to approach something with these athletes as it was with general population, simply because there's a lot we actually have to try and break down with them. These people are high-level athletes that have great physical literacy anyway. So, you ask them to perform a task, and more than likely they'll be able to perform that task and at a very, very decent level. However, that doesn't necessarily mean biomechanically they're doing it efficiently, but they're still able to get around and perform the task. So when you sit down with them and say, well, okay, these are sort of the fundamental things that you should be able to do at a very low intensity, let's have a look at those. And you find out, surprisingly, that a lot of people can't do the very, very basics at a low velocity, very simple stuff. But at high level performance, their body somehow has this amazing ability to perform it under pressure. You're breaking things down, starting again and talking them through, okay, this is where we need to start, this is where we need to go. Just like it would be with somebody from Gen Pop that's new to the gym, perhaps, doesn't really know how to go about achieving their goals. You really have to break things down and sort of educate them as well at the same time.
That's interesting.
With those, the athletes, when you have to really dissect it and break it all down and say that the movement isn't quite right, what's their mentality and mindset, right? Because I'm guessing they're used to just getting it like that straight away.
Yeah, I think luckily I've been quite fortunate with working with people that are quite open-minded, and I think naturally with professional athletes that have already got these, amazing facilities, amazing staff around them, they don't have to go out and seek the extra work. So I think anybody that does really are quite open-minded and committed to being the best that they can anyway. So I haven't really met much resistance in that regard. I mean, some people, it clicks straight away. They're like, wow, yeah, like I can completely see what you're saying and how that links into the game. Some people, you need a little bit of work to sort of swing around to your way of thinking, your approach. And sometimes that doesn't always help with the resistance you can meet from the club sometimes. But on the whole, I think they've, everybody I've worked with, they've been brilliant.
Amazing. I think, so would you say the thing that tends to jump out more so, because you mentioned there that you go into those fundamentals and your low velocity stuff is almost where you start. Would you say making those tweaks is then what makes them perform even better at the higher level? Because is that where your initial focus is? How do you structure that? How do you decide on that, mate?
Well, it's kind of refined a little bit over the years with experience, really. I mean, obviously I went in doing all these qualifications, and I think, as generally speaking, a lot of young lads, particularly me, when I first started into the fitness industry, I just wanted to be strong, big, powerful, performance. So I went into the sports side of it with that same focus. Right, if you do this, you're going to generate more power, you're going to do this, you're going to do that. But over time, I think what I've realised is getting those fundamentals right is paramount for injury prevention and preventing soft tissue, non-impactive injuries, which, when you look at the scope of a full season, it can mean, in terms of stats, performance stats, in terms of minutes played, and then obviously that leads into things like assists, goals, etc. Staying injury-free can boost that so much, and that's another measure of performance, rather than what's your power output, what's your vertical jump height. It's very subjective, and something like football, it's not fixed. There's so many variables that happen with every single game that you have to almost bulletproof and prepare the body for any and every scenario that can come on. So yeah, slightly different.
I think that's probably one of the biggest, not even necessarily just in sport, is it? I think if you look at consistency across the board, whether it be business, whether it be in life, whether it be in sport, that's something that is almost paramount, isn't it, to being successful? So you having a chance to just increase the amount of minutes played for someone is going to give them a better chance of being consistent off the back of the fundamentals work that you've done, which is then, like you said, going to show in the stats and whatever. So is that you go all in on that initially, or obviously it's always going to be client dependent, isn't it? But
yeah.
How would you say, would you say you have a general overview approach when you first take someone on? How does that look?
Well, for me, it all starts with the same fundamentals as it does with taking on any client. It all starts with a consultation. I think another thing that I found working with athletes is that they're human beings. As stupid as that sounds, I always thought, gosh, yeah, it's a football, it's so-and-so, and you look up to people that are in great positions and great things. But actually, I've had people that have come in on consultations and they've been like really low in their confidence levels, really low, really low confidence in their body's ability to sustain performance, over the winter seasons when there's games are coming thick and thin and the pitch is heavy and things like that. So it really starts with a consultation, just getting to know them and putting them at ease, and explaining your role in the whole big picture. That's where it starts for me. I always say, look, I'm one small cog that's going to, have a beneficial impact on your performance. It's not all me, it's not all the club, it's not even just all you physically. There's the nutritional aspect, mindset aspect. So I'm one very small cog to explain that role that I'm going to play in their journey, if you like. And then I always do like a movement screening. So depending on the athlete's background, if it's football, I know a lot of typical movement patterns that occur in football. A lot of planes and movements are very important. And I've done a lot of research into common injuries and the mechanics of those injuries, non-impacted ones anyway. And I look at those planes of movement and see how competent they are. What's their range of movement like? Is it that it appears that, if we're looking at opening the body out, if you're letting the ball come into you, open your body, that external rotation through the hip, where is it coming from? Is it even coming from the hip, or are they swinging on their toe? Are they bailing out? Are they stiff with the shoulders? Is the thoracic tight? All these things link into areas where other joints might be taking on huge amounts of stress and force because another area of the body's not free. And I'll start with that and I'll just explain it and talk them through it. And hopefully do it in a way where they're like, look, I'm not trying to break you down and say, you know, you're completely incompetent. It's like, you know, you're clearly very, very able, got great physical literacy, but we can make you even better because I've identified these things. And if we can nail this, you'll be flying.
I'm guessing then when you say that you're going to be even better, that's going to then help the mindset as well, because you're elevating that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it all ties into motivation, doesn't it? I think it's no different, you know, for people, you know, general population clients. You know, you say it's like anything. You open their mind to, okay, if you do this, this, and this, it's going to improve these areas. And by improving these areas, you're going to feel better about yourself. You're going to be losing weight. You're going to want to eat better because you can see the progress you're making. It all links back into itself, I think.
Yeah. Mad. I think it's really interesting to hear that you can transfer those concepts from Gen Pop, and you have done that. Would you say you obviously your background, your history in PT and working with those guys had a massive underlying effect in how you went and then approached the guys you work with now? Was that something that you would recommend other PTs maybe that are looking to get into similar veins of work and work with similar level athletes?
Yeah, absolutely. Like I said, I've been listening to all your episodes of the podcast, and obviously the one with Matt Ford is obviously, you know, struck a chord because obviously it's like a throwback. But some of the things you pointed out in there is like, you know, the expectation of high quality service that we had working for GFI. I think that was one of the underlying fundamentals. And I think the way in which we were sort of encouraged to PT from back at the Newbridge tennis club was always with that very personable approach and treat every single person as an individual. You know, it's personal training for a reason. And I think also I've worked in a various diverse number of settings. I've worked in one of the biggest health clubs at the time anyway, where there were 7,000 members. There was a PT team of 18. You know, there was loads of people there, and I saw some really great things. I saw some really terrible things from PTs, and I think it's just trying to pick out a thing that you think, yeah, that's top quality, that's class, and I aspire to be able to provide that level of service, and look at other things without prejudice, but think, personally, I don't think that looks great. That's not something that I want to do, so I'm probably going to shy away from that because of this reason. And you just mould your own approach, you mould your own belief system of what you think a good quality service is. And I think that's where it all starts, to be honest.
Cool. Yeah, I think I agree. Without that service element, then you're pretty much just selling time for money, aren't you? And then, especially with athletes at that sort of level, yes, they've got the money, but their time's probably, in a sense, even more valuable because they've got to go out and they have to perform, and there's a time frame of when they've got to be at their peak every single week, isn't there? Yeah,
absolutely. I think that comes with, I think that's another point. There's a lot of barriers of working with professional athletes is that their schedule is busy anyway. You know, they're in the club every day. Some days they'll have double days. They'll have one day off. And a lot of people, you know, I've had clients where they'd rather double up on the day before the rest day, just so they can have that day just to do completely nothing, because mentally that's what they need. We've had some people that would rather not use a rest day, come and do a session. You know, each person's different, but there's lots of things to juggle. Like you say, you've got to look at the fixture list and, you know, how quick and fast are those games coming in. You know, what time of year is it? If it's the winter season where they're coming in thick and fast, it's not just how many games are coming, how long have they played, you know, are they still in cup competitions, how are they feeling, did they pick up any injuries, what's their schedule like at the club, if they lost, has the gaffer got them doing doggies for an hour and a half and they're coming to you shattered, that might mean you have to completely change your session plan. There's lots of factors to consider really with it.
So do you tend to liaise with the clubs a little bit, or are they set programs and then they come to you for additional, or do you link in and blend the two? How does that usually look?
I try as much to liaise with the clubs as possible, but as I'm sure you can imagine, I've had some resistance in the past, which is a shame really. So it just depends on the player and the club and the relationship that I've got with the coaching staff there. So if they're compliant and they're happy with the roles and stuff that I'm playing in the client's journey, then often it's a liaison with the player. What have you done? How are you feeling? X, Y, and Z. And my session plans I usually send over directly to the coaching staff if I've got that level of relationship with them. Or I plan all my sessions anyway, keep them on record, so I've always got them there. Because you might find that clients, if they can't quite get to you for whatever reason, commitments change. Oh, can you send me that session that we did the other week? I'd like to do that again. Or if called upon, the club's saying, well, we can see our players doing sessions with you. We want to see what you're doing, why you're doing it, and sort of justify it, really.
It's like, for me, what's going to be interesting to hear is like, you've got that relationship now, but going back to the beginning, how did you build that relationship? Because you said you had a couple of clients who you knew quite well, and you were trying to get things off the ground and running. How did you then build that relationship with the club with what you've got now?
To be honest, the relationship with the club came secondary. So it was just really, I just went direct to the player. I was just like, can you come and do some work? And they just thankfully, genuinely found it, enjoyable and beneficial for what they were doing. And, I remember doing a 30-minute taster session with the first person I did. And this was before a more refined approach, but I had these movement patterns that were really important for football and feature like football, but I was doing them almost like plyometric based. And I did a 30-minute taster session with them. And he's messaging me the next day and he's like, mate, I can barely get out of bed, like I've got training, and he was sore for like 3 days. I was like, no weights, nothing, just all pure movement based. But no, they found it very, very sort of like beneficial. And then from there, they've sort of thankfully done a bit of word of mouth for me. And the first player that I ever worked with, and getting 8 clients from that club from the first team. I was working with 8 of the first team squad, so not necessarily first 11, but 8 of the first team squad at one time. And so naturally, you then come up on the club's radar. Back then I was a lot more active on my social media with, filming little snippets of the session, putting it up there, saying, I've just done this session with so-and-so from this club. And that gained a little bit of traction and obviously a little bit of attention from the club, which led the club to then sort of reach out. And that particular club was quite resistant. It was like, we don't want you doing anything with our players. But, you work through it and you try and ask the right questions as to, well, why don't you want me working with them? Do you know the reasons why they're seeking additional work? The fact that they are seeking additional work is not, negating the great work that you do at the club. It's just a logistical thing. Players want personal approach. They want personal consideration. If you're in a team of a squad of 20 and, you're doing the same gym session, well, you've got wily wingers that are sharp and fast, and you've got big, burly defenders that aren't the quickest, but you're never going to shove them off the ball. But they're doing the same strength work, they're doing the same speed work, they're doing the same endurance work. And players are, I think, getting more and more clued on to their fitness themselves. They're doing a lot more research themselves. They know what's good, what's not. And people are looking for fine-tuning of their own personal fitness, really, I think.
Do you think that resistance from the clubs was probably more so a lack of understanding? Because I can only, like Martin, you'll be able to tell us from when you were at Burnley. I bet there wasn't really anything like this sort of thing knocking about then, was there? Do you know what I mean?
No, nothing at all. It was pretty much exactly like what you've just said. Your sessions would be pre-season. I could just remember what they was like. It was just pretty much straight up doggies. Just run, keep running. And exactly like you said, in your head, I'm a forward or a winger. And I was like, this doesn't, none of these movement patterns work for me. So then I had to go about myself. And it was interesting hearing what you said early on, because that was my journey, very similar to yours. It was like listening to myself, to be fair, because I then started to research myself, what I need. And I think it's massive that what you're doing, Elliott, because there's so many people that need that, especially in semi-professional, professional football, who are just the smaller clubs that haven't got much money. They're gonna struggle to be able to provide that service.
Absolutely.
And I think you're onto an absolute winner, because that is exactly what I was going through. I was like, this doesn't work for me. I'm not getting any fitter. And when I get the football in the 80th minute, I can't pick up speed. I can't control the ball, because all I've done is just run around the field and do doggies all day. That's not worked for me. It's so it's spot on, mate. Like I couldn't champion it enough, because I've been a product of that from the, well, mate, I don't even want to say my age, but from the early 90s. It's been a bit of a graft, so it's just so refreshing to hear these guys are going to get this kind of support, which in essence, we're English guys, and we want England to win a World Cup, and you need to get this kind of support. You need this knowledge.
Yeah, I think there is a bit more of an uptake on it now, to be fair. You do see, a lot of the top guys doing work, and, just to mention one person in particular, Jamie Reynolds of Velocity in Birmingham, he's done a fantastic job, I think, in the professional scene, and raising the awareness, as well as doing really well himself. He's raised the awareness, and I think you'd have probably seen in the last 2 years, a lot of people in the off-season doing their personal work and putting it up on Instagram. I think that's all come from that sort of culture. But it's just, I think the main thing, resistance from the club for me, it's a lack of understanding, like you said there, Dan, and then secondly, it's a logistical thing. From the lack of understanding, I've always said, when I've met any resistance in the club, look, we've got a mutual interest here, the player. Your role is to make the player as good as you can. My role is to make the player as good as you can. So why are we fighting each other? Let's work together. You tell me what you're doing at the club, and then I'll tell you what I'm doing within one-to-one. And, as it transpires now, I do very, very little aerobic development work with the people I work with, because I don't need it, because I get it all at the club. It's more functional, biomechanic work, strength work, range of, active range of movement stuff. So I don't need to be fighting the people at the club that are getting them doing doggies, because I'm not even doing the same thing that you're doing. And secondly, the fact they're coming to me, it's clearly just a logistical thing. If you've got one, it's particularly the lower clubs. So I work with a local team to me that are in League One. They've got one physio / strength conditioning guy. He does a bit of both, and he's got somebody that supports him. Now, if you're looking after 40 professional players, 40 players that are on professional contracts, but they're only in for 2 hours a day, 4 days a week, in terms of actually training, how are you supposed to do that? Because players aren't going to want to sit around waiting for an hour or 45-minute one-to-one with you. The culture of football is you go in, you train, you might stay out and do a bit of extras, but usually that looks like a bit of free kick practice or a bit of shooting practice, not S&C stuff. I know some players that don't even do the S&C stuff that they're supposed to do at the club, because they dodge it. They walk around station to station and maybe do a few reps and put it down. So it's just a logistical thing. My argument's always been, even at the highest level, you've got players that are on 200 grand a week. Yet you've got S&C guys that are on 40 grand a week at the top clubs. And you might have, at the top clubs, 4 or 5 of them, maybe tops. So you're paying 5 people the equivalent of your top player's weekly salary in a year, right? Now, for me, if you want to safeguard your asset, which is the player, surely you can recruit another 5 S&C guys on 40 grand a year, because that's the equivalent of one player on 200 grand a week. And if he's injured and he's not playing, there's no return on that asset. That player's not benefiting the squad, benefiting the team. So I think there needs to be like an infrastructure change or a logistical change.
Or even more so, that bit more of an understanding that they can encourage them to go and seek out someone like yourself that can provide that level and provide that understanding and that bespoke approach to that individual player. Like, a blend of the two would be ideal, really, wouldn't it?
Personally, I think it absolutely would be. And you see more encouragement of that at lower clubs, from my experience. And I think that's just because they know that we don't have the resources to be able to provide that support. Where I think some of the bigger clubs, they like to think that they can still do that, but it's not about what facilities you've got. It's not about what qualifications you've got or the knowledge you've got. It's just about the time, which brings me right back to the start of saying they're human beings. They want to feel like you give them that due time and attention. You know, someone that mentally might be thinking, oh, you know what, I'm tired, I'm achy, this is stiff, this is sore, and now you chuck them in the gym with the other 25 lads and asking me to do hex bar deadlifts heavy for 6. That's not what I want to do, because my hip's hurting, my hip's sore. I need release, I need range of movement, I need this, I need that. You know, you're just not getting that one-to-one due time and attention, really.
Yeah, it's not to blame the clubs at all, because they're obviously within their own restrictions and budgets. Absolutely. And whatever else, they've got that, haven't they? But I think then that's when, and it's probably transfers quite a bit to when the guys we work with in commercial environments and online. You see a lot of cookie cutter approaches, and you see a lot of people that build that product around it, around just having a template for people to follow, and they pay X amount per month, and it's almost that's a subscription service. So I think that leads us quite nicely into ProgramKing and your aims with that, and your views on that, and the reason for you setting that up, mate. If you want to talk through that, that'd be great to hear.
Yeah, sure. So ProgramKing is an online program platform for health professionals. So it's not just for, you know, fitness instructors or personal trainers, you know, physiotherapists, yoga instructors. Absolutely anybody can use the platform, and it's there just to solely focus on programming. Okay, I know there's other solutions out there that offer things like, you know, client booking systems, payments, all the rest of it. But the plan with ProgramKing is just to do a really, really good job at, you know, providing something that's easy, simple, and effective for people to follow and for people to plan on. So cutting down time of, you know, even if it's just a click through, how many steps you need to do to add an exercise into a plan, so that the focus is then on what you're selecting and why you're selecting it. It gives the practitioner more breathing room to really make a considered approach to their programming. And really what I want to try and do is make good, effective programming accessible to as many people as possible from both ends of the spectrum. That's from trainers, you know, PTs, etc., and through to clients. Something that, you know, hasn't got to be super expensive. It hasn't got to be super complicated. It's just straightforward, simple, on a mobile app or via the website. You can just follow along the program that's been specifically built for you, taking that personal approach by a qualified health practitioner that, you know, it's geared around your goals, and, you know, it's going to help you to get you to where you want to be.
Yeah, I think because we see that a lot, don't we, Mark? As in, we speak to PTs and stuff, and programming is just a ball game that a lot of them, in the beginning especially, it's like rabbit in a headlights, isn't it, when you start talking about programming? Because when you're fresh off that course, if you're someone who's gone in there and you've maybe not even had massive amounts of experience of training yourself, to even talk about programming, it can be, where do I start with this? Like, how do I take someone through a journey? What sort of cycle should I be looking at? Like, there's loads of elements that are in that, and I think the ProgramKing service, by the sounds of it, is something that's going to allow people to come away from those cookie cutter templates and just get that bespoke approach a little bit more. So, is that the thoughts?
Yeah, absolutely. I've had to make some quite difficult decisions with what I include and what I don't include. Obviously, going out and doing some market research, and I think with what's currently out there, people are already thinking, well, this does this, and I'm like, okay, that's great, but it's not supposed to be that. You know, so I've had people saying, well, could I create a program that's like 6 weeks long and then just assign it to like 50 clients at once? And I'm like, I'm not putting that in there, because it's not personal, and that's not what the brand stands for. And that's it's a very, very firm stance I've had to take on it, because a lot of people would probably jump on the platform based on that alone. But for me, I think the programming should be personal to each individual. And then secondly, the way in which you can program it is very open. So from my experience and my personal opinion, a lot of solutions have a certain way in which you have to plan and input the exercises and things like that. This is very open. So literally you could go on and you could assign a client one exercise per day, or you can go on and you can assign that same client a whole year's worth of periodized programming in advance if you wanted to. So I think for people that are coming fresh off the course, it's not as intimidating. For people that are beginners to exercise, it's not as intimidating. And it's very adaptable as well. So as you click through it, it asks you for certain, obviously, metrics of what you've done or what you've used, how you found it. And all of that is automatically populated into a chart and progress graph that the trainer can see. So you can see the weight they've used, if it was above, the same, or below the prescribed weight, how hard they're finding it. So you can always make those fine tweaks and adjustments, and you can message, obviously, your practitioner directly through there. So it's very inclusive, but also very straightforward as well.
So, yeah, and the key thing there, that which we tend to talk about a lot, and you've mentioned it already, that phrase of personal training being personal. It keeps that element, doesn't it? Because you want to be able to really tweak and develop and build that individual that's right in front of you.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that would be one of my biggest bits of advice to anybody in the industry already, or anybody wanting to get into the industry, is that, you know, you should be in it for the right reasons. You should be in it because you want to help people. You should be in it because you genuinely care about getting somebody from A to B. And I don't think you're going to do that by putting out a generic plan. I mean, don't get me wrong, there are areas where that's going to benefit people, because if it's somebody that's literally isn't doing anything and they're just following any sort of physical exercise program, they're going to be better off for it, absolutely. But I think the question you have to ask yourself, is this the very best level of service that I can provide? And if it is, okay, great, that's what you decided. But I would sort of say to people that I don't think that's anybody's best level of service, and everybody could do bespoke plans for each individual, and you'll get a better reputation. I think if you're looking at it from a business point of view and having long-term clients and getting word of mouth clients, I think the level and quality of service that you provide is the very best marketing and promotional tool that you can have, rather than just saying, oh, look, here's a 50 workout standard program for £6 that you can have, and chuck them out low quality, high volume. I think quite the opposite, personally.
Yeah, well, you get that return, don't you, from the clients as well, because they know that your reputation's at a level. They know that you're able to provide the service that some others aren't providing, and people will go out and compare you with others. And even if they have had a PT before, like Phil Learney posted the other day, it's almost like online dating, isn't it? Where people will go and they'll have a PT, and then they'll judge all the other PTs off that one experience. But that's not to say that all PTs are the same and all PTs are created equal. So, like that, again, like you mentioned there, from a business point of view, your return and the level that you can charge at, because it's not based on time for money, it's based on level of service and results and progression and how you feel and the effects that it's had on your whole lifestyle and how you've managed to turn it around. You can't really put a price on that sort of thing, which is only going to benefit you, isn't it, if you're building something out?
Yeah, absolutely. I think there is a perception that people have, and it doesn't matter whether it's professional athletes or Gen Pop, that people think a personal trainer does X.
Yeah.
And there's so many different archetypes that people think, okay, this is what a personal trainer's like. You know, someone that I see once a week that shouts at me for an hour and I go home and I never hear from them again until next week. All the way through to someone that's a counsellor, support system, a motivator, you know, someone that's just there to help you and guide you through, you know, someone that educates you on technique. You know, there's such a wide spectrum of what people, you know, believe PT is. And I think with every single individual PT, you fit somewhere on that spectrum.
Yeah.
I think depending on where you are on that spectrum will depend on, you know, what you can sort of suggest to your clients as a level of service that you're going to provide to them.
Yeah, bang on. It's exactly what we say all the time, isn't it, mate? And you talk about that a lot in the foundations courses when we're sat with PTs that are coming on board, that it's a lot bigger than just 60 minutes. I'm going to smash you as much as I possibly can, and you're not going to walk for the next 3 days. Do you know what I mean?
It's trying to get the new guys to understand that how important a service is. You get what I mean? And I think that when you come, well, we can, all three of us can say this, when you first come into the industry and you get qualified, you're just trying to get clients. So you might build a couple of templates or a couple of little quick programs, but the service is what gives you that longevity, like we've been saying, which is something that we massively focus on trying to do with these new guys. I mean, what you've created, you've made me want to buy it off you, because I'm still playing, mate. I'm still playing, and I'm over the hill, and I'm still trying to start myself out. But you know what it's like when you create your own programs, what it's like to try and stick to it. But if you pay for something or a service, you're more likely to go with it. You know what I mean? And I'm definitely going to be tapping you up for one of them, mate. I'm telling you that now.
Yeah, I think self-prescribing anything is really, really hard. I find that myself. And like, for someone that's an advocate of, yes, you need to be adaptable in your training program, but equally you need to give it enough time to breathe before you can start to judge whether you've seen any results from it or not. You know, I'm the sort of guy that will write down my training for the week. I'll do my week, and I'll get to the weekend, and I'll be like, I don't know if this is working. I want to change it up. And I'm like, I haven't even given it a chance yet. Do you know what I mean? I think when you're doing it for yourself, it's very hard. But the main thing is to keep moving, isn't it? Do you know what I mean? The main thing is to keep moving. If it means that every single week I'm changing my program is slightly, the way I see it is all I'm doing is slightly tweaking things. And the reality of it is I'm still always along the same sort of trajectory. If my goal was to get, stronger, I'm still training along strength protocols. I might be changing the approach slightly, but I'm still along there. So I'm still tweaking and finding what works for you. And I think that's an approach you need to take regardless of your clients you're working with and regardless of their background. You need to be tweaking things. I once did a qualification with somebody else on this course. He was like, I never, ever plan a session. And I was like mind blown. I was like, how can you not plan sessions? What, you just wing it? He was like, if you want to call it wing it, yeah, but ultimately, I don't know what that client's going to turn up with on that day. He goes, so I've got a rough framework of what I want to do in a session, but if that client turns up and is like, my back feels like it's broke, and I've had like heavy back squats with him, well, that's pointless me planning the session, isn't it? And whilst I don't completely agree with that approach, I took enough from it to think that actually what you're trying to say is you've got to be adaptable. So, there's been many times when I've planned a session and I've even got halfway through the session and I've gone to do a particular type of movement, and it could just be that the client just can't get it. They're to the point where their coordination is that off that you're probably going to do more harm than good in that particular exercise. You've got to change it. And it's being okay with that. It's being okay to change things and just keep stepping forwards and keep moving forward with it, I think.
It's scary. Like, I think everyone on the call then was just sitting shivering when you start saying, I don't even plan it. All right, mate. Wow. Okay.
I knew straight away that you'd lose your head. That's fully gone because of that. That's him done for the rest of this week.
Oh, right. We'll end it there. Let's go. See you later.
No, I think that's a bit of an extreme approach, but I think, again, being in the industry like we all have for a long period of time, it's taking and cherry picking little bits that you think are right, little bits that you think maybe aren't right, and sifting them out, thinking like, I would never go into a session blind and not plan something. But then equally, I can't go into a session thinking, well, this is what I've got planned, and you're doing it whether you like it or not.
Yeah.
It's being, adaptable and adjusting to what the client's presenting in front of you.
Yeah, he was. I think he's definitely got a point in that sense of it. But you probably would want to write a plan first, wouldn't you? And think, right, Absolutely. this is my outline, and you can't do this today, or you might not be able to perform X, Y, Z. So we'll tweak those elements of it. My head's just gone, mate. I'm absolutely.
He just wants to talk to.
I just want to sit. I feel like I want to sit him down for 2 hours and just understand where he's coming from. Mad. Okay, great. Look, buzzing. Really appreciate you jumping on, mate. We have got a couple of fun questions at the end to finish. So we'll go with the dinner date. Martin, if you want to jump on that one, mate.
Yeah. Which one are we doing? Are we doing guests? Or are we doing
both?
Food?
Yeah, do both.
Right. So first we'll do guests. So 3 guests. They can be dead or alive. What 3 guests are you bringing to your dinner date?
Dinner date. All right. Denzel Washington.
Shout.
Because he's a bad man. Great film. I've literally got like a shrine of Denzel Washington DVDs at home. So him.
To be fair, mate, some of the new PTs listening to this might not know what a DVD is, had they? You know what I mean?
Let me just say, I was talking about DVDs to my missus yesterday, and my daughter looked at me and went, "What's one of them?" She's 8 years old. She didn't know what it was.
Mad.
Okay, so I'd say him. Another person, I'd probably say Gary Vaynerchuk.
Shout.
Just simply because he's straight down the middle, talks it how it is, and I would say over the last couple of years, he's given me a few virtual slaps around the head and just to do things and not be scared and not hold back. So I think he's a good motivator.
But that whole you're gonna die setup it's true, isn't it? Like you are gonna die, so why wait? You only live once, so depending on what religion you follow, obviously, but live your life and get out of it what you want to get out of it. Yeah, I agree. He's a good shout. Big fan of his. Cool. Who else?
I mean, I could name so many different people, but somebody slightly different that not a lot of people might have heard of is Dr. JoeDispenza.
Okay.
He's a neuroscientist. He's got quite a deep sort of rooted religious belief as well, but brings round the neuroscience into it. So he's all about the power of positive thinking and mindfulness, but marries it with these are what the brain scans show actually happening in the brain when you're thinking positively and stuff like that. And his stuff is really, really interesting, really, really good read. So,
what would be the first question you'd ask him?
Wow. What would be the first question I'd ask him?
Because he's a great shout, and I don't know what I'd ask him first. So that's why I'm asking you.
That's a great question.
Do you want red or white wine? Would probably be the best question if he's at a dinner date, mate.
Yeah, there you go. Let's go with that because I don't know where to
We'll be here for 3 hours. No worries, mate. And then what we going with? What are you going to serve them? Yeah, so start. So yes, mate, you're cooking. So starter, main, and dessert. What would you serve? Whether you can cook it or not is probably a secondary question. But in an ideal world, what would you serve for those three meals?
Okay, if it was, I haven't got to cook it at all. Just what would I serve them? I'd probably go with some nice potato skins with a bit of cheese or something as a starter. Just a bit dirty. And then, I'd probably go with a good bit of steak.
That's the second person to shout steak for the main, isn't it? To be fair,
if I was cooking it though, I'd go salmon because I can cook salmon well.
Oh mate, you two are basically the same person.
Started now.
Mate, it's game over. Martin Love is the salmon king. That's all you ever see him eat, mate. All you ever see him eat. Yes, do it.
So yeah, I'd probably go steak if I wasn't cooking it, and then for dessert, I'd probably go with a cookie dough.
Cookie dough. Ooh,
salted caramel cookie dough.
Cheeky.
I've got one last question that I've just thought of in my head. Right, stranded on a desert island, one album and one album only. What you bringing?
Oh my god.
This is, knowing Elliott as I know Elliott, you're probably going to be here for about 5 hours in thinking this through.
I know mine. I thought of it in my head already. It'd be Snoop Dogg, Doggy Style.
Wow.
That'd be mine. What would be yours, Dan?
One album only. It's a tough question, that, isn't it, mate? It's a tough question.
I think everybody's gone backwards, though, haven't they? Do you know what I mean? Everybody's gone back to like their childhood albums. No one's thinking of one now, are they? So like, It's got to be nostalgic. So I would probably go. It's probably going to be like a weird one, but I'd probably just go Usher 8701 album, just because it was a class album back in the day. I used to love it.
And that's exactly why I chose mine. Just nostalgic.
Do you know what I'm going to go with then? The first album I ever had, ever bought for me by my old dear, bless her, was Will Smith, Big Willie Style. Miami. What a tune that is.
Classic.
What a tune. I'm going with that one. What's that?
How old were you when your dear bought you that?
Good question, mate. I don't know, to be fair. Whenever Will Smith's music was popular, whenever that come out. It was after Men in Black, I think, so it was around that time. Good tune, though, that. Good tune.
Yeah, great tune.
Good tune. So, yeah, a younger me knew all the dance moves to that. I'm not going to do it on camera, though, don't worry. Wicked. Cool. Again, appreciate you jumping on, El. It's been great to catch up with you. It has definitely been overdue. And I'm sure we'll have to meet up once all the lockdown and stuff is finished and grab a drink and have a proper catch-up, mate. But again, great to hear all the progress you've made, all the stuff you've done, and really exciting to hear about the plans you've got for the rest of this year. Again, thanks for joining. Listeners, if you do want to subscribe, it will be down in the bottom corner. You can click that, and that will give you updates every single time we release an episode. Other than that, we shall see you next time.